yo, yo, and good morning, everyone,
Good morning.
or evening, or wherever you are.
Yeah,
You're all welcome. The same. You can always make up a reason to be lazy, you know.
yeah, yeah.
So Manu, what are you drinking at the moment?
Oh, today's a new thing for me, or what? Yeah, what means new thing? I mean, I have a pour, Wudang Fu Brick Silver Brown, which I didn't try before. I have it laying around here forever, like from 2015 or so. And
Remind me at the end of the video to ask you how it was.
yeah, we don't forget. But yeah, let's see about it. So I'm just washing it now, and let's see. Yeah,
Washing, tea washing.
washing. Yeah, important.
You always need to clean stuff, also
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah. Because life gets too bitter if you don't do that.
But that one should be fine, the Wudang Gung Fu brick.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, doesn't hurt to wash it once, you know.
Yes, yes. And what are you drinking?
I'm drinking a black tea, actually, a Chinese
Oh,
black tea. Like most
okay.
Chinese will ask, no, you don't have that. Where did you get Chinese black tea? And I just checked. A friend brought it from France, so I thought it would be somewhere in the French colonies or something like it, because there's so good places France
Okay,
has outside
okay.
of France to grow tea.
All
But
right.
actually, it is from Yunnan.
Okay.
So southwest China, I think it was Yunnan. Beautiful region, man. If you ever can get to somewhere where good tea is, then it's Yunnan. It's like a dream
Mm-hmm.
area for tea and for living generally. So beautiful in terms of nature.
Okay. Yeah, I never got to see that. We were just at Beijing and
Me neither.
okay.
But everyone I know who went there loved it. So I'm always inclined to. I would have gone already to China a long time ago if Corona didn't happen and everything else.
Yeah,
Like, I'm so annoyed by this.
yeah,
No, yeah, but that's a topic for another time.
yeah. What we're looking at today?
Today we are looking at both of us and unit testing. And
Unit
I'm not
test.
sure which one is less appealing.
Well, can see that in two directions, right? Either unit testing is not appealing, or or it is appealing, and then we are too. So yeah,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Unit testing
Yeah,
sounds
unit
dry,
testing.
but
Um,
important.
I mean, yeah, it's developer 101. If you
Yeah.
like, we have people applying also to our departments, departments.
Maybe that too.
Maybe that too. Not my apartment. Mine is small for another person. No, at my department. And if you do a code interview and we ask you to do one and you don't deliver unit tests, then you better have good reasons why you didn't deliver them, you know.
Okay.
Because it's kind of like you apply for a job, you write a piece of code, you better have unit tests.
Yeah.
You know, that's the least you could do, you know. That's the minimum. Over just delivering code is not enough. Like, forget it. I'm not interested in that, you know. Just at least provide some testing, you know. That's kind of where you show that you care about the
Yeah.
stuff you do.
Yeah. Right. Is there also coverage checks from your side? So do you have a certain percentile in mind where you say, well, this guy delivered unit tests, but the coverage is just below 50%, so he didn't do a
We
good.
never judge people on that.
Okay.
What we do is when we review their code, we write down questions. So if they don't
All
test
right.
something, we, for example, ask, why didn't you test it, for example. If he has a good reason, you know, that's okay.
All right.
Even
Yeah.
sometimes that you say, I didn't get to it or was simply not doable in that time. You know, private life also strikes you hard sometimes. That's okay. You know, you can, there's a fly away, fly. That's totally fine, you know.
Yeah.
At least then I know the reason, but there's still, like, even if you have a lot to do, some minimum level should be persistent. So if you
Hmm.
apply for a Python job out there, for a professional Python job, definitely if they ask you for a coding task, do unit testing and some basic documentation. That's the two things we usually want to see. So
Yeah.
either markdown file where you do this do something. And the second one, like I said, is provide some tests. Doesn't have to be big. Most of you know unit testing is basically just when you test a function like this one here. No, not this one. Is it somewhere here? No, actually, I don't have the source code here. I have it next to this. Here we go. Okay, so this function here, which wants to be tested. It doesn't do much, just print something out, but you will see that even printing, you should test properly. So that's unit testing. More importantly is always the question, what do you test? And I always give this big advice. Unit testing, generally do it. Like, you don't have to go crazy, Manu. The coverage also we had some checks in our code base to have percentage coverage.
Manu,
and of our more dire products. And in the end, we also started to ignore it a bit, because then it's dropping for 0.1% and it's failing. And you're like, come on. And you need to fix this 0.1, but the code base is so complex at some points that fixing 0.1 is so, again, an own PR, So it can be really annoying dealing with it, really annoying. So ever since then, I'm a bit, I'm not a fan of huge coverage numbers anymore. I rather go by feeling. But definitely, if you have a code base with 30% testing, then you should be a bit worried, especially in Python. Because Python, always never forget, compiled languages, whatever compiles usually works. It might work wrongly and segfault or whatever, depending on the language, but it works. In Python, you have everything is delivered to the runtime. So you will have a billion bugs in there already. Maybe even code which wouldn't run never, and that's just always unit. Like Python, you cannot make it safe enough, the code. It's super annoying, Manu. It's super annoying. Two things, Manu, which I would also recommend knowing is integration testing and system testing. Integration testing is basically when you do stuff against other systems, more or less, you can even mock the other systems if you want to. System testing is basically when you have a website, for example, it's set up and you implement like a bot which clicks certain parts and enters stuff, and then it should do something, Like this is really testing the system when it's running.
From the user side, right?
This is more like really testing it in an integrated way, that it's plugged into something.
Okay, so then you don't trigger the functions manually, but with the API or so.
For example, for the weather API, you could either go against the real API, but it's always a bit tricky, because if they do something, you get it in the face. Sometimes you want that. Maybe you want to say, okay, if it doesn't work anymore with their API, I'm happy to see it. But what you can also do is you can write a little mock, what we call it. So it's kind of like the remote API. What you do is you kind of, instead of talking to the outsider, you talk to the mock, and it kind of gives you perfect data back, which you know what it should be, and then you can run the tests.
All right. For test case. Yeah, sure. Makes sense.
So that's a bit more preferable, something like this, because then you have the whole environment under control. But it's also a bit more than a lie, So what you usually run, rule of thumb, good is always do unit testing to some degree, and run integration tests against external systems is also good. If things are worth it, you can mock them away or something. Also totally fine, but I would also root first for external system if they allow it. It's just, like I said, a bit tricky, For example, imagine a database where you create something and then two pipelines run in parallel and they create the same thing.
That kills you.
That kills you, and you will have those all the time then, and it's super annoying. And no. So be a little bit use feeling. I always say use feeling, like a cook. Don't do stuff blindly by the textbook or whatever. Think about if it frustrates you because it doesn't work well, then maybe it's just not set up in the right way.
Right.
There's other things, performance testing. That's basically not what you should ever do with Python. I'm just kidding. No, like usually all the other stuff, there's a lot more how you could test, but let's be honest, most stuff is usually unit tested and then one of these system test or integration test, and that's it. You know?
So performance testing means that you check if your big O notation is correct. So if it scales right, something like that, or
yeah, kind of like in Rust you have a kind of like benchmark checks where you or tests you can run which just check the performance.
all right.
I don't think they necessarily run against the threshold that they need to be as fast as XY because they run on different machines and it's different speed anyway. But at least you have these tests where you can see if someone maybe screwed up something in between. You know, there's always someone who replaces a function in the hot path, and then you're like,
performance drops.
Introduce a copy somewhere. I mean, in Python, everything is always slow anyway.
Yeah.
but a classic is usually, somewhere you have a loop and you, I don't know, allocate stuff all the time, like a string which gets longer and longer or whatever, stupid stuff.
Okay, yeah, so Stack Overflow could also be some performance metric here.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Okay, if you deliver to me integration testing when you apply, like I'm in heavens, like that is maybe even almost too much, but yeah, definitely go for unit tests.
Yeah,
unit tests. We use PyTest. I think everyone uses PyTest. There's the standard unit test I stuck to for a long time, but I don't know. Manu, you also use PyTest, right?
I have to think about it because all my unit tests I recently done in Java. So I think is there a package called unit test?
Yeah, there's I think the standard packages has the unit test inside in Python.
Yeah, I think I have been using this. But not because I chose to, but because it's just what I thought would be the easiest way to go to. Yeah, I think I
use it in a mixed fashion often. You will see that in a second.
Okay.
I always tell people don't go blindly for things. Always use your perception.
Yeah, like in Java, it's easy. You just use the unit test framework. So there's not. I'm sure there's some other options, but I think. Everybody uses the JUnit tests, and I see your frustration with Java all coming up.
No,
no, hold it.
It's like currently I see a war troll unfolding in front of me. Like how I lost my leg, and all of that. Kind of like when people talk about Java, it always gets me nervous.
Yeah, lucky you don't have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah, and I will make sure of it. I sacrifice too much to get away from it. Okay. So for unit testing, you can define the test files. Many people do it outside here in a test folder. Some do it like me next to the source files. I like it next to the source files because I want to have code locality. And, I wrote it down, but it's really, I hate it having two folders and they have the same structure and all of that crap. So I always put it next to it, and that's good. And then when I delete the file itself, I can delete the test right away too, and don't forget about it. So that's pretty neat and easy.
You do that for other languages as well, like this? Or
depends on the language. The rules are always different for each language. You need to be mindful with that.
I think in Java you have to have those test folders. But could be. So in the Maven project, for sure. But I don't want to bother you with Java anymore. So
in Rust they have it at the end of the source file at most of the time. Even
in the source file.
Sometimes, yeah.
All right,
also a bit variety, but they can put it into, basically it's just an additional section below.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That's what do you call it? Code allocation or locality? I don't know. Yeah, Yeah, that makes
Heavily.
sense. Yeah. Because I'm also searching quite a bit, sorry, for test files belonging to the corresponding source file. So yeah, to have it right next to each other makes sense to me.
Yeah. By the way, when you start with test underscore, the testing set framework will find it anyway. When
Yeah.
you can just run it usually. Poetry run PyTest, I think it is. And then I need to run it on the Death Star package. Yeah, and it runs the test, and that's it. It looks really nice also when it fails and stuff.
Yeah.
I really love PyTest for it. And because we are lazy, I always recommend it. Put it into the task file, of course, so people don't have to remember it.
That makes
Here you
sense.
already see I even added some coverage reports. That's for documentation lesson. So you can see also here it might get a bit more complex.
Yeah, right.
So and then you can just run as usual test, and we are all happy
same
friends
thing,
together.
Yeah. And you're getting back into NeoVim. Glad to see that.
Yeah.
So the pain is not only on me.
It's the third. Yeah. You people out there that you don't know, but Manu has been practicing Dvorak, and it has been a real pain for us because it kind of takes him always 5 minutes to respond to text messages.
Really? Yeah, it's a pain. But I went the full way. New keyboard, new layout, and NeoVim, so that was pretty.
And you remove the
keyboard blank
button.
keycaps. Yeah, I showed it in the camera, so this is the Kinesis advantage too, and it has just blank keys.
So
Can recommend them.
Yeah. Dvorak blind with NeoVim.
Yeah.
Like that is hell on earth.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
But yeah, what doesn't kill you cripples you.
Well, I hope to be faster someday, but it will take a while. So currently I'm at 40 words per minute. So that's okay-ish, I would say. Okay-ish. Not fast.
You'll get there.
Yeah. I'll practice every day. Every day. Yeah.
So funny. Okay, so much for PyTest. So you have basically run it then from the task file, and that's all there is. Not really. Then there's side effects. Oh, I thought about it 15 times, Manu.
Yeah.
You know what side effects are?
Right? Yeah, if you have an effect which is caused somewhere different, which you did not want, or something which is just caused by your action, but you didn't intend to do it, right?
Yeah, kind of like you could run the function multiple times, and if you add something multiple times, there should be the same outcome, right? But but side effects kind of they do stuff on the side which may make it fail, for example. You know?
Okay. Yeah.
So whatever happens, and they're classical friends of the side effect faction, which are most likely input-output, networking, file system. I don't know, lots of stuff. Anything interacting with anything outside, that's usually troublemaker. And most people don't know, but printing itself is also a side effect, because I/O can also fail. Your operating system may crash during that time because of the I/O or something. But because these print does not return an error value or an exception really, but it could kind of smash you in the face. So remember this. Now there are different ways how to deal with side effects, and I tell you how usually in clean languages it's done, and I really like it. In compiled languages, usually what you have is you have the function signature here, and there's some other way to inject this print function inside. Some functions you can give it as a function pointer. Some class in Java you have interfaces where you reach around interfaces which do it for you. Stuff like this.
Yeah.
And then inside you can just call this function, but you don't know what's actually behind it. And what you could do is then this rich.print you could replace with another object which just checks inside that something actually was printed. So it's not really printing it, but it would kind of pretend that it would print, and would also tell you in the unit test then that something came in and it was this text, and then you can check it. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
So this is usually how you do it in other languages. In
Yeah.
Python, because everything is a Python object, you kind of can ignore that. They have mocks, which allow you to mock away anything you like. Here it's basically patching away the rich module entirely. Then I set up here this mock, so you just do the mock dot the function which you would call and give it a return value, whatever, so it knows it's a function.
Well, that's
And-
one question, Cody. One question. That's interesting that you define the devstar.laser.rich. So rich, I mean, it's nothing which is nested inside your devstar laser, right? But you give it a full path where rich is used, right?
Yeah, and you need to do that because otherwise it doesn't work. This is
Okay.
so funny because here
Yeah.
it's in the namespace as this object, and you need to mock this one away, and it's of course under Death Star Laser Rich.
So if you have multiple files with multiple rich prints, you would have to mock each of those.
For the individual tests you run in that file, yes,
Okay.
you need to mock it differently.
All right.
Yeah, I kind of like it because it
It
kind
makes
of
it cleaner, yeah.
It's more cleaner. It's local, and usually you test the file itself anyway because it's called unit testing. A closed unit you're testing.
Yes, yeah, sure.
If you don't do that, you screw up.
Yeah. All right. Yeah,
Okay.
but I wouldn't have guessed that. So it's not
Yeah.
really intuitive, but yeah.
It's good. Thanks, man. So yeah, you run the function here, and then what you can do is you can actually check if the function was even called. That's super cool for unit testing.
Oh yeah.
And
right.
you can also check if it gave the right output. Don't do this here. Don't check the entire output string because someone at some point will come and say, let's exchange this emoji. And then it will exchange it in a unit test fail, which is totally senseless because it still works. So usually what you want to do is maybe take some key phrase or something out of it, you know.
And then something
And
like
then-
in. Yeah.
Yeah, and then check if something was in or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can do that. So that's kind of the better way. But the thing is now, because you can mock away stuff like this in the functions, you don't have to insert from outside, for example, the print function or stuff like this. And I was really torn, Manu, and I taught you, I think, at some point even a bit delicate topic too strongly, but yeah, I think in Python it's okay to do it this way, to have side effects on a lower level, but mock them away.
Yeah.
The reason why I don't like it is if you have a call stack, this, for example, this function calls 3 functions below.
Yes.
And you go like that. And then you need to mock away a lot of stuff, and you don't want to do that.
Right.
So then it's kind of better to work with the side effect interface. So what I learned in my Python code is when it comes to side effects like I/O, following the paradigm of other languages makes it more durable, the code base, but it's less Pythonic. Like in Python, usually you would not do it the way I do it in other languages. So a bit of grain of salt. Go with your standard way, mock away whatever stuff is in your way, but yeah, don't go too crazy there.
All right.
I need to smash you one more.
What? Yeah.
If the call stack is deep, like here we call fire calls print, right? But print could write, I don't know, fs.write or whatever you call.
Yeah.
So you could have 4 levels down. Unit testing, leave that. If it runs as a contained unit without side effects, it's okay. But often what you have is the third function in the call stack opens and writes a file and closes it and stuff. What you then end up with is 3 or 4 of these mock statements. Super horrifying.
Yeah.
And it's much, much better than to go into the function itself and mock just one layer away. So I'm jumping a lot in the code. Here. No, not here. Here. So you kind of mock away function calls which are one layer below or level below. And in unit tests, this is a good advice. Do that generally. Don't, even if it's in your own code base, don't be anxious to mock away one layer below. because if it does complex stuff there,
Yeah.
it makes testing so hard because you need to have 15 cases. Yeah.
Right.
And it's horrifying and annoying.
Yeah.
So you have every right at every point, if mocking gets annoying, that you mock away the functions just one layer below, even if they are your own. That's totally fine.
Okay. Yeah, it means less need for tests, right? So you can test the level higher and don't have to deal with the deep stuff in the third mock area.
We have in one of our code bases, we have one test which runs at the highest level, the highest function we can have.
Yeah.
And there are hundreds of lines to set up the mocks. It's super annoying, man.
Yeah, sure.
No. It's really, I hate it. Like, not okay. That's a code smell. That's something definitely gone wrong there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much for mocks. Anything coming up from your side also? You mocked a bit yet?
Yeah. But I think I never mocked my own functions away, but just input output to the system. So I mocked files, write to files, read from files. I mocked that behavior. But never whole packages or systems or functions which I had the control over. So that's a new topic for me, and I think just my code didn't get difficult enough to do that, or to have to do that it makes sense. I can see myself doing that quite a bit in the future. Yeah,
that's a bad interview answer. No, just kidding. I can see myself doing that a lot in the future.
Yeah, really. No, I mean that.
No, it's totally fine.
I just thought about mocking to be a way of dealing with input output to your system. So that was my thought of mocking, and that you can mock your functions away. That's what I didn't guess or grasped in the beginning of.
But you didn't need it yet too, I guess.
Yeah, right.
So that's fine. If you didn't need it, why should you have used it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, totally fine. By the way, also favorite interview questions about mocking. Monkey patching. This is basically a patch here, what we apply and stuff like this. So if you've never done this, they like to ask a lot of questions, not necessarily at our place, but generally about unit testing and testing generally.
Yeah.
So take it serious if you want a job, young boy.
Yeah. About that, I was watching some videos from that guy. Oh, how he's called? Uncle Bob. I think Uncle Bob.
Never heard of him.
No?
Okay.
Oh, you have to check them. It's Uncle Bob. He's pretty famous for incorporating the test-driven development stuff. And he has topics with the design patterns and stuff. There's some good videos about him. Maybe we will link some below.
I never told you, but the second thing I'm allergic to after Java is test-driven development.
Okay. So you won't like him. Yeah. But I think
nothing personal. I might like him and might like test-driven development too, but so far it always crippled me.
It's strange to see someone programming a stack and he doesn't write a single line of code for at least, I think, 20 minutes because he's writing all the test functions, what the stack should do. And it gives him errors all the time, right? Because, there's no function, there's no class. And he writes the tests, and I think that's how I guessed test-driven development is you write your tests first, right? Yeah, I tried that.
The problem is if you don't know what you're looking for and how it should look like, then you write the tests, you write the functions, then you adapt the tests, then you adapt the function, and then you adapt the tests, and then you adapt the functions, and in the end you figure out that I should have wrote the freaking functions first.
Yeah, to see all the problems you could test against.
First, also the layout of the call stack. So if you know what you're doing, TDD is really good.
Yeah.
If stuff is still a bit weak, what you're programming currently, don't even think about making tests first. It's kind of, I like it because you think about first about what should be the output of what I'm doing here. So it kind of has a salt, which I really like. I guess a mixture of the mindset from TDD and the normal programming style is a healthy way in high uncertainty.
Yeah.
But everything is okay. but yeah, I just never liked it because for me, stuff is always so vague. In the tasks I had, that I first needed to figure out what this thing should do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So don't forget to integrate your tests into your CI/CD pipeline. That's really neat because, of course, when someone does a PR or something, it fails. I can show you in a second. Yesterday it failed, to my knowledge. The cool thing is you just need to add it here and you can just run task test and you're done.
That's
I just
cool,
like
yeah.
task for it because it's always, no matter where you are, in pre-commit hooks, in CI/CD,
Yeah.
you always just run the same command and it does the same freaking thing.
Yeah. It's a single line. It's easy to execute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the wrong repo. Let me quickly check. Tick. Here, yesterday I pushed something and it broke the pipeline, and then you kind of see when it fails.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? You also see which failed, why, and so forth. So really neat stuff. Yeah. So you basically just put it into your pipeline. That's all. And last but not least, you can also put it into your pre-commit hook. So it runs the same thing. So then you have pre-commit hook set up. And yeah, CI/CD with testing, and you're ready to go. And like I said, do unit testing, take it serious. And in the weather API test also, you need to mock away the request.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I will be implementing
this. That's a side effect.
Yeah. And also the requests and with that the API, right? So yeah,
not the API, but just the request call itself you can mock.
Okay, and then I can
go.
All right, so I can just give back saved data from a real request and give that back as a
or throw an exception.
Oh, that's
also important to see.
Right. Yeah, it's also a test case. What does it do if it's handling the wrong data? Yeah.
Does your user get a nice error message if you need it? If you don't need it, just screw it. Let the function crash or the application. But if you want to have a nice error message for the user, definitely useful to throw an exception in a mock.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that makes sense. What I've been struggling with that is you do some tests, you do some, well, how should I call that? You do some condition checks, so what could go wrong in the testing. But you also do that in the source code itself, because you want that application doesn't crash if the user gives a bad city name and weather API cannot find the city name. So you deal a lot of conditions also in the code itself. And I struggled sometimes where to put what, because in the testing you should also include everything what could go wrong. But if you have included that in your source code already, you can test against that. So
what do you mean include in your source code?
So let's say you have the weather data API fetch or whatever it's called. You're giving a city which doesn't make sense, like a cat is going over the keyboard. And in the source code, I catch that and say, well, I didn't find a city, please enter again. Right? So I make sure in the source code that whatever I give to the request is something which makes sense. But then again, I cannot or should not, or I don't know, test against giving strange inputs to the request. If I want to test the source code, this case that the user gives in bad input is never making its way to the request. So I'm not.
Then you don't test it. You don't test what cannot or ought
what
not
cannot.
occur.
What cannot happen in the real code because it's catched there. So
exactly. That's totally fine then.
Okay, that's
don't
fine.
Test it
because I had in mind to fully test the whole thing and what could go wrong, but then again I have dealt with that. No. Yeah, you see, test-driven development and where I'm coming from. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. Always, like I said, there always must be a need to do something, to test something in a certain way. If the
Yeah.
need does not exist, don't test it in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can test yourself to death if you want to.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I did
That's
sometimes.
that's really not worth it. And that is usually
Yeah.
the difficulty. What makes a person in the end a senior is that person just knows how much to do when, generally.
Yeah.
They just know it. They just have it in their blood,
Yeah.
And they would never write too many tests. They would never write too less tests or something like that. They just know kind of this middle way, which is very difficult for most people to grasp. Because if many people come from lessons from university or stuff when they are juniors, and they kind of try to rationalize how much to do, from the books, but it doesn't work like that. You need a bit of experience to hit this middle way, which is the golden path. And that requires just a lot of experience. And I really like what you just said about TDD in that way, because it kind of forces you to think about what do I really need. So that's pretty good. I agree with you there. It's a bit better than rigid testing. If you just test a function in all ways, that's super stupid.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think it's this need for security, because if you test everything, you can be safe, right? So this is the think in mind.
Not in Python.
Not in Python. All right.
We talk about the wrong language there, man.
But in respect to your code, if you test every corner case, you're pretty certain about what you need. Yeah, but then again, for example, one example comes to my mind. In the Weather Data API, I ask for the API key. And I make sure that whatever is getting inputted into the environment variable then is of the correct length. So the case that someone gives in a wrong length number or whatever key is dealt with. So I would not, in my mind, have to test the request against a faulty length, not faulty in all cases, but faulty in length API key, which I give to make sure that I have an exception for that.
I would even go further. Big golden lesson for everyone. Open up your ears if you're still asleep. Don't test what is stupid. Like if the user inputs stupid things into your program, don't bother testing it. Then it's his own fault. Like if you say, please input this and this and this, either absolutely make sure he cannot, but that's usually so much effort. So if the instructions are clear what he or she should do, don't test if they screw around with your program. That's not worth it. That's not worth your time in the beginning. Later, yes, you need to tighten it, especially when you're on the internet and need to make it secure and all of that. Yeah. Sure, okay, at some point you need to do that. But in the beginning, I go with the Forrest Gump, like silly as what was the saying? I forgot it. But yeah, if people do stupid things, that's their own fault in the end. If they come to you yelling, oh, I input all the escape character sequences and it's broken the input, then would be like, yeah, no wonder. Like you input escape characters. What do you think would happen?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's
so. Yeah.
The thing is, for releases, you have to keep in mind that your user may be not as good as you are in the code, or let's say in using the program. And I don't know. I think that the responsibility question is another topic, but to make your program sure that you don't have really bad outcomes, that's definitely a case.
I agree with you.
Yeah, but not in the first stages.
Yeah, but not in the first stages, and especially if you know who you are addressing. If you're addressing developers, you don't need to make it secure, like for fools,
Yeah, right. And can I say that you don't require that in the unit tests, but rather in the source code testing, because the user, or the dumb things the user could do, should have been considered in the source code and not in the unit tests? Is that a point to make, or isn't it that a point to make?
Yeah, I think you still need some testing. Like if you want to
also for faulty inputs, right?
Yeah. I mean, what gives you a solution? A little bit of secret hint about testing also. What gives your solution and your software a unique flavor, which will make it loved by everyone using it, is proper error handling. That means they do something silly, which maybe was not in, was easy to do, silly, you know. But then comes a nice, beautiful error message telling you, hey,
Yeah.
this didn't work out. Try this. Like, this should have entered or something like that. So
Yeah.
if you provide it to the users, they will kiss you, man. This is high quality, beautiful error handling and testing of user input.
Yeah.
And you can test it in the unit tests too, and you should do that, of course.
Okay. Yeah. So to check that your mechanisms also work to deal with error handling and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Understood.
Yeah. So that's kind of one thing. Okay. It has been a long lesson. I think we
about 40 minutes.
In between the lines, yeah. I need to warm more water. My tea is not ready yet.
Oh, we can talk about the pour, which I drank now.
How was it?
It's interesting. It has this I would describe it as a tobacco taste, smell.
Yeah, it's a pour, yeah.
Yeah, you have to get used to that. But and one another thing I have experienced now drinking this is, man, this tea kicks in. So I'm 100% awake now, right? Yeah. So I don't know. I suspect the caffeine proportion is rather big.
I need to check. Like, it's almost unbelievable to me. But like I said, I
don't know.
don't feel it. So
Okay,
for me,
yeah.
it's always difficult to grasp.
So you get relaxed with pour, but are stoked with green tea. For me, it's the other way around.
Yeah, it's so odd. I don't know.
All right.
I was built in strange ways.
Well, or I was. So we have to do more
We
testing.
both are in our own way, I guess.
We do
more testing.
unit tests on us. Same tea. Yeah.
More tea testing.
Yeah, tea testing. Testing and tasting.
Okay, everyone. So
Right.
we are happy and I hope you enjoyed. This was a longer session, but I think unit testing, there's a lot to be said in between the lines. People don't tell you also about recruiting. Yeah, we hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you didn't do yet and you want to see more of this content. Yes, and yeah, keep always a pot of tea warm. We'll be with you in our hearts then. Yeah, and see you next time.
See you next time. Bye, guys.